All right, well, we will go ahead now and get started. We're going to chat about this morning title insurance. And a question came up, Miss Claire, one of her clients this past week was asking about, I heard it went pretty good.
It did.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
One of Claire's clients was asking this week about title insurance. And I am certain that all of you have seen on settlement sheets, you probably heard about at one point or another, that there's title insurance. Well, the question came up from Claire's client, and it was several questions. The first one was, Greg, do I have to have title insurance? And is anybody not know what title insurance is? Anybody not know? Everybody? Okay, title insurance is something that in Georgia that the attorney issues on behalf of the lender and or the owner or both, okay? And what it does is it ensures that the information that's been researched on the title, both now and in future, potentially, are covered. So there's certain issues, and I'm going to talk about that. Now, first thing is title insurance is not issued by the lender. Even though there's something called lender's title insurance, which we'll talk about, title insurance, the title insurance agent in the state of Georgia is the attorney. That's just the way it works here. So the lender does not pick title insurance. Lender, you dictate who's going to close the loan, which attorney, and then from there, that attorney is going to issue the title insurance. Now, if you're wondering, yes, the attorneys make money on title insurance. They receive a commission. How much it is, I'm not exactly sure, but if anybody looks at a settlement sheet and sees the attorney's settlement charges of $600, $700, $800, and you think they can make money doing that, we're just kidding ourselves. There is no way that as an attorney you could make money if you charged for $700 a closing. You'd go broke in no time. So there's got to be other forms of income. The biggest one happens to be title insurance. Now, there's two different forms of title insurance. There's lender's title insurance if you're getting a mortgage, and then there's owner's title insurance. Now, when I asked the question, is title insurance required? And Chris kind of shook his head and said, no. Well, it is and it isn't. If you're getting a mortgage, lender's title insurance is absolutely required. It is not optional. The lender's going to require it. Owner's title insurance, which most people don't realize, is an optional item. You do not, the buyer does not have to take owner's title insurance. Now, that's generally not disclosed completely, because even me, when I issue a loan estimate or I put my financial illustrations together and give it to people when they're getting pre-approved and all that, I always quote both lenders and owner's title insurance. Keep them both in there, because 99% of the people do take owner's title insurance. So I always quote it. But if someone like Claire's customer said, well, do I have to take it? The answer to that is no, you do not have to take owner's coverage, but you do have to take lender's coverage because he's getting a nice big loan. So you do have to do that. So first thing is lender's coverage is required, owner's coverage is optional. Again, most people take it. So anybody have an idea why people should consider taking owner's title insurance? Anybody want to offer an idea?
It protects them from losing the house due to an unforeseen title issue.
Okay.
For the life that you own it, and it's a one-time fee.
It's owner's, good point. Owner's title is a one-time, once you buy owner's title insurance, as long as you own that home, you never have to buy it again. Even if you refinance, you never have to buy it again. It's there. Lender's title insurance, though, every time you get a new loan, you get new lender's title insurance. What a racket, right? It's just the way it is. The previous lender's title insurance doesn't transfer to the next one. Your owner, though, you're the owner, it stays, owner's title insurance stays with you forever. Now, Casey brought up it protects things such as the title, things that are unfolded. Now, I'm not going to go into it, but if you want to see the actual document on what's covered, Brett sent me the document that has all, I mean, it's extensive. But there are differences, as you might imagine. Now, there are two different types of title insurance, other than owners and lenders. There's two different types. And one of them is called standard, the other is called enhanced. Now, the only way you will ever get standard title insurance, and this is from every attorney that I work with in the state, they don't tell you this, I just happen to know this, you're always going to get the enhanced policy unless you request the standard policy. If you request the standard policy, that's the one that they will issue. The enhanced policy is the one they quote to you and to me. Why? Well, because it's a better policy. It covers tremendously more than the standard policy. There's a lot of things in the standard policy that are not covered going forward on whether it's lenders or owners coverage, it's not covered. So the enhanced policy, which is what every attorney will put on there unless you request it. Does anybody, have you ever heard of both standard and enhanced title insurance policy? Anybody in the room familiar with it?
Yeah.
Philip, Casey, a little bit familiar with it? Okay. But does any buyer ever ask the question? I don't know that I've ever had a buyer ask, oh, should I get standard or enhanced? I don't know if I've ever had that question come to me. It's come up because people say, geez, that seems a little bit expensive. Enhanced policy is about 20% more, so it's more expensive. But it's a much more inclusive policy. And people will ask me, Greg, what should I do? Well, first of all, whenever somebody says, what should I do on something like that? The answer is, you can't pin me down on that one. What I'm going to do is present to you as much as I can and ask you to contact the attorney. And then you're going to ask me, Greg, what do you do? And I personally always take owner's coverage. Now, for me, the reason I take owner's coverage, I've had to use it twice in my lifetime. So it's unusual that you'd ever have to do it. But if you do, you've got it in place. So it's whether you ever use it or not, whether you ever buy it or not, that's entirely up to you. But since you asked me, I'm not going to tell you should or you shouldn't. Talk to the attorney, let them tell you. But me, I'm going to buy it on every property that I'm going to own because I think I don't want to take a chance. And if they ask me, am I taking standard or enhanced? Again, you make that decision after you talk to the attorney. But I'm taking the enhanced because I know the kind of problems that can exist. I've personally exhibited it. Now, Claire's customer, really super bright man. He said, well, Greg, how frequently besides you having to use it twice, how frequently does it ever happen? I said, well, in my 33 years, I've probably had maybe 8 or 10 people use it over 33 years. He said, how many loans have you done? I said, thousands. He said, well, then my probability is very small. And I said, look, I'm not here to tell you that you should or you shouldn't. I'm just telling you the probability is you won't need it, but if you did, it would probably save you some money. But that's up to you to make that decision. So I want to give you, before I go on, I want to give you some idea on what it costs. All right? Because it varies. Now, back in 2007, 8, and 9 during the crash, there were all kinds of issues that came up with title insurance. It was terrible. Casey's nodding his head. He remembers all too well what his mom went through, what all of us went through that were in the business back then. It was ugly. And there were some shady attorneys that ended up getting put in jail and blah, 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 things that went on. Title insurance at that time made a major change. See, prior to that, the attorneys basically, they would get what the cost was from the title company for the insurance, and then they would do whatever they need to do with it. Mark it up, do it this way, do it that way. No more. Back in 2008 or 9, I forget which year it was exactly, the insurance commissioner of the state of Georgia took over the title insurance business, meaning that they cannot just randomly adjust anything. Everything that the title insurance company chooses to charge in the state of Georgia that the attorneys must agree to, because they're the agent for the title company, has to be approved by the state insurance commissioner. That does not mean that every title company charges the same rates. But in order for a title company to charge anything, it has to go through the insurance commissioner. If they want to up it, reduce it, whatever it happens to be, has to be approved by the insurance commissioner before it can then get to their agents, in this case, the attorneys. So it goes through there. That's very important, because people sometimes wonder, they'll say, gee whiz, that seems like such a racket. Well, it's really not. It was many years ago. It's not anymore, because everything has to go through the title insurance commission, or the insurance commissioner of the state of Georgia. Now, this is where it gets a little sticky. People will say, well, how much does it cost? Well, first of all, every title company, Stewart Title, Chicago Title, Fidelity, New American, whoever, they all charge something a little bit different. But it's pretty close. It's pretty close. I've written down some numbers. Don't write this down because it may not apply, but if you wanted to know, just to give you a ballpark idea, the combination of owners and lenders title insurance, the combination is roughly 5% of the sales price. So if you take the sales price, and not 5%, 0.5% So if you look at it on a $560,000 loan, you're probably looking at just under $3,000, or maybe a slight over, slight less, for title insurance, the combination of owners and lenders, the combination. Now, how that is split up is going to vary from title insurance company, but the attorneys can actually move those numbers around. That they can do, as long as they don't go over what has been approved. So in this example here that I've got, the charge for this particular, this was a 20% down loan, so $560,000 purchase, $448 loan amount. The total was $2,871, and split it up, lender's title was $1,593, owner's title was $1,278. So roughly, both of them were roughly 28% of the mortgage or of the sales price, depending if it was lenders or owners. So and again, those numbers can vary a little bit and change a little bit. But again, it's usually going to be somewhere in that 0.5% range for the combination of the two. This is an enhanced policy. So it helps to know this. Now, do you have to figure all this out? No, that's what your lender does. But be sure that the lender is at least coming up with some numbers that are relatively close to this. And I would always ask your lender, please do me a favor and quote the enhanced policy, because that's the one that's taken the most frequently. Now, honestly, you're going to say that to some of the lenders, and some lenders are going to shake their head and say, what are you talking about? Yes, there are truly lenders that have no idea that there's a standard and an enhanced policy for title insurance. You know, that's probably one of the lenders you may not want to be using on a regular basis. But you always want to at least ask, I mean, if they're quoting things, because that's what's going to come out. Now, think about it. So if you look at the charges on a settlement sheet, and you see this huge, okay, start with the attorney settlement charge, the title search, the title examination, the title review, the lender's title insurance, the owner's title insurance, the recording fees. That's a list about this long. From lender to lender to lender to lender. When you write a contract, what's the probability of those fees varying from one lender to the next?
100%.
What's that?
I'll say 100%.
That they would vary or would not vary?
They
Okay, if you write a contract and you say that Luter Larkin is going to do the closing, okay? Is Luter Larkin going to give me a better deal than they're going to give another mortgage company?
No.
If they're not, then that set of fees that they charge, what's the probability of it being different if it's me or if it's Rocket Mortgage? If Luter Larkin's closing the loan.
It should be the same.
Should be the same. That's my point. People don't understand that. Your buyer does not understand that. That's a huge number of items that show up in your closing expenses. Those items that show up in closing, that group, all of that stuff that's loaded there from the insurance, that will not be different from one lender to the next. Because Luter Larkin does not give Greg a deal. Luter Larkin does not give a deal to Rocket Mortgage or to Homestar or to Fairway or to whoever it is. We all pay the same based on the attorney you put in the contract. McMichael and Gray, I do a lot of business with McMichael and Gray. Guess what? If they do business with me versus with Fairway Mortgage, we're going to get exactly the same rates. Everything's going to be identical. So your borrower needs to be comfortable that all of those fees are going to be the same, including title insurance. And title insurance can be a big deal. Now, one other thing about title insurance. So Ian decides not to take owner's title, if that's the case. Then what I told him on Friday of last week, you don't have to take it. Be sure you're going to sign a document at closing because the attorney is going to cover their butt and they're going to have you sign a document that says, I acknowledge, I understand the risks, and I chose not to take owner's title insurance. Bam, you're going to sign it at closing. Attorney's going to insist on it. I told Ian, be ready because your lender's title insurance is going to increase. I don't know why, I'm not, but here's the bottom line. If you choose not to take owners, your lender's coverage is going to cost a little bit more money. Now, what if you have a cash buyer? There is no lender's title insurance. Well, be sure if you've got a cash buyer, you're going to ask them how much is the owner's coverage in a cash buyer, because they're going to cover both. Because now they're covering the entire loan amount. Now, is it the same or is it doubled? No, it's not doubled. But the attorney will give you what the owner's coverage is if your buyer's paying cash and they want owner's coverage, hopefully the enhanced policy. But if they want that, be sure they get how much it's going to cost them. And in cash deals where there's no lender, there's nobody to give a loan estimate, it kind of gets on you. Now, I will tell you, you can ask me to get involved anytime. You have a cash buyer, you're uncertain, they want to know the costs are. Casey's done this with me a couple times. You just come to me and say, Greg, what are my costs going to be if I'm doing a cash deal? I'll work up a quick illustration for them, and I'll be able to provide them with something that'll give them at least a ballpark idea of what to expect. You're still going to pay attorney's fees. You're still going to pay for the title search and the title exam. You're still going to pay for, if you choose to get owner's title insurance, you're going to pay for that. I can't imagine paying cash for a house and not getting owner's title insurance. That's beyond me. Okay, I don't know why you wouldn't want to do it anyway, but okay, that's beyond. There's two things you wouldn't pay. You're not going to pay estate intangible tax because that's attached to a mortgage. You're not getting a mortgage. But you will have to pay the state transfer tax because the title's transferring from owner A to owner B. But that's not that much, $1 a thousand. So, two things you won't have to pay if you do cash. You don't pay lender's title insurance, you don't pay intangible tax. If you choose not to take owner's title insurance, lender's coverage goes up a little bit. And always think in terms of enhanced policy versus standard policy. It does cover quite a bit more. All right, questions?
What exactly does an owner's policy insure against?
That's a very long list.
Okay.
Now, but I'll be happy to say I've got it in a PDF. If you want it, just let me know. I'll send it to you because it's a very long list of things that it covers.
Okay, and can you acquire it after you own the home? Does it have to be when you purchase it?
Oh, great question. You can get owner's coverage at any time if you haven't got it, but it's going to cost substantially more to get it after the fact than it will before.
So they would just require a title search and make sure.
It's going to require another title search, that's correct.
Is that right? Okay.
Yep, yep. Casey?
I'd like to know if I'm correct. Generally, standard title insurance covers stuff that could have gone wrong with the title prior to closing, where enhanced title insurance generally covers things that can happen with the title after closing.
In a very broad sense, yes, but not entirely. Because there are things in the standard policy that if something happened years ago, standard policy may not cover it depending what it is, where the enhanced policy will cover it. So there's more that the enhanced policy covers. Some of the stuff that happens after closing, the standard policy covers anyway, but not everything. One of the big things, if you or I are the homeowner and we put in a fence or a pool or blah, 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 any of that stuff, if we do that without having it permitted and surveyed and everything else, then title insurance doesn't cover anything, whether you do standard or enhanced. So whenever your buyer is making an improvement to their home, everything that they do outside, they should make sure that they're staying within the codes and the guidelines. Because if they do something outside of code and they don't have it, give you an example. We put in a new deck about 5 years ago. And in order to get a new deck, because I live in what's called the Chattahoochee Corridor, so in order for me to get a new deck, I not only have to get my homeowner association, but I have to get Johns Creek to approve putting in the deck. In addition to that, I wanted to have it permitted anyway, because I didn't want to take a chance when I go to sell it, especially with as much money as we were spending. So I get all the designs, everything's finished, and they come out and do their Johns Creek comes out, does their periodic inspections, because you got to get inspections along the way. They do all of the inspections. Now I go to get the final, get it finalized, and a new inspector comes out. New inspector comes out, he gets up there, he says, man, they did a beautiful job on your deck. I said, thank you, I'm really proud of it, really like it. He walks over to one end of the deck, he goes over there and he goes, I think we got a problem. And I said, what do you mean you think we got a problem? I said, he says, no. I said, we, not you. I said, what do you mean? He walks back down off the deck, he takes a tape measure, puts it from the edge of the deck to the edge of the pool, and says, that's a problem. I said, what do you mean? He said, you have to have X number of feet, I think it was 10 feet or something, from where the deck ends, because I've got the deck's up on the second level. You got to have 10 feet between there and the beginning of the pool. He said, you've got 7. And I said, but wait a minute. He says, nope. Let me just tell you something. He said, this is not your problem. This belongs to the city of Johns Creek. I have every one of your approvals that the other inspector gave us. He said, I'm signing off on it, but if anything ever happens, it's on Johns Creek, not on you. So that's a big deal. So that's why you want to make sure your client has coverages and that they're not just running off, doing their own thing, throwing in a fence or doing this or doing that. All right? Any questions? Claire, does this help?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. All right.